Well, Amber, multiple charges going as far back as 25 years, many of them out of northern Kentucky or even Ohio.
In 1997, online court records show Sheehan Shank pleaded guilty in Campbell County to marijuana possession. He was fined and sentenced to 2 years of probation. In 2009, he was found guilty in Kenton County of receiving stolen property. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail. 5 years later, he pleaded guilty in Campbell County to 3 counts of receiving stolen property and being a persistent felony offender. Those charges were also from 2009. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, running concurrently with 2 other cases out of Ohio. In 2016, he was found guilty of receiving stolen property, theft by unlawful taking, and again being a persistent felony offender. These charges were from 2010. He was fined and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Just 2 weeks ago, Central Bank filed a complaint against him in court. They claim Sheehan Shank owed them close to $12,000 after defaulting on a loan for an ATV.
Well, if you're doing the math here, you know his being sentenced to 20 years in prison just 9 years ago doesn't quite add up. State parole board records show he was eligible for parole in April 2021 and then again in January of 2022. I will say right now we are still working to learn more about those charges and when exactly he was released and the conditions of his parole as well. In the studio, I'm Garrett Weimer. Amber.